about the Catholic baptism and the Protestant. Now, the troubles in Ireland, I think they would have stayed in Ireland, but they didn't. And in fairness, they came more in my family than Bud's family. But Bud was very staunch Catholic, and I admired that in my husband. That made him a good man. And I never, I always supported that. When I wanted to go to church with him, he was fine. And he never pushed it on me. But that was a good man, a good religious man. And you got to learn to recognize that, girls. You have to learn to do that. So our wedding, even though we were unsuspecting of this, I guess I was suspecting, turned out to be the potato war, and we almost eloped because of it. But now that's over, so that should be all done. And we have 2 children. We have a 3-year-old little boy, and we have a baby who was born in October. And 2 weeks later, my Bud went back to sea. Well, now, guys, you know that in the Catholic religion, well, if you don't, I'll tell you, that babies should be baptized right away. So, guys, my kid was now 6 weeks late. Bud's ship is out to sea, and we're going to have the baptism right after he gets home, the day after, because his soul has to be saved. Now remember, folks, you're hearing all that great Irish music, and I'm wearing orange because I'm not one of the green Irish. I'm not a Catholic Irish. I'm a Protestant Irish. So let's go back in time, and we're going to go into my kitchen in Charleston, South Carolina, and like a good Navy wife, I'm expecting my husband home in 4 days. And the next day after he gets home, the baptism. Everybody's coming for the baptism. So I'm baking away, cooking away, doing my wifely thing. And right now I'm putting on my apron before we go into my kitchen. I do have a green apron, so I have something green. Okay, something green that's Irish. I put the apron on, and I think I'm just about ready to tell you the story. I'm in my kitchen that day, and it's a nice day, and sort of hot, and I have a 3-year-old that's running around. My little boy's going shh, 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 and a sweet little baby who's now 6 weeks old and a bit overdue for his baptism. And he's in the rocking cradle. We had a rolling rocking cradle, and he's in there, and he's sort of babbling away. And I am baking and cooking and baking and cooking. And on my table are all these beautiful baked goods that I'm going to package and put in the freezer for the baptism. So I have lots of food. We didn't have, he was still an infant, so it was cheaper for me to make it then. And on the stove is my Irish beef stew. Irish beef stew with cabbage and a good roast beef. And, it looks so good and it smelled so good. In the oven is my Irish soda bread. Things are just rolling right along, and everything is sort of helter-skelter in my kitchen when the doorbell rings. Now, this is like stepping back to Ireland, because I opened the door, and there is this red-headed priest. He's got this red curly hair and these pink Irish cheeks, and he's sort of chubby. And he says, "Oh, Linda, I had to come to talk to you about the baptism, and I wish, guys, I wish I could do an Irish brogue, because this guy had an Irish brogue like you wouldn't believe. It was like he's just stepped out of Ireland." I said, "Oh, Father, come in, please. Excuse the kitchen. Everything's a mess here." "Oh, not to worry." I said, "Well, I'm making things for the baptism, and I want to have it ready, because the day after Bud comes home from sea, then we'll have the baptism." And so many people are coming. He says, "I'm a little bit upset that you didn't have the baby baptized right away. I mean, you should really have a baby baptized immediately." "Well, Father, I couldn't help it." I said, "Bud, ship went out to sea. I can't control the Navy." He says, "Well, I think our good Lord will forgive you for not having the baptism right away. But we better get all the things ironed out here. He says, what smells so good? I said, oh, Father, I just made my Irish stew with cabbage and all kinds of stuff. There's a bit of Guinness in it, too. But the alcohol's been burned off, so it should be okay. He says, well, I do like my Guinness. I said, would you like a Guinness with that, Father? Oh, yes. So Father Flanagan sits down, and he has not a little bowl, but a big bowl of my stew. He's got a Guinness, and he's enjoying himself, and the timer goes off. And it's time to get out my Irish soda bread. He says, whoa, what's that, Linda? I said, oh, that's my Irish soda bread. And he eyes it up, and I said, would you like one of those? He says, yes. Oh, my goodness, Linda, you're such a good wife. You're such a good Irish lass. I mean, your husband is so lucky to have you. And I could feel my chest puffing out a little bit because now the priest has said so many nice things about me. And he's eaten away at my stew, and he said, it's good to have a wife that while your husband's away takes this time to be so supportive. Such a good girl you are. Such a good Irish girl. I said, well, Father, I try. I love my husband, and I want everything to be ready for the baptism. Yes, we're going to have that baptism. I said, yes, I know, Father. That's why I'm doing all this baking and cooking for this. So the father says, he says, well, now we're going to open the church special for this because we don't want a day to go by without your child's soul in jeopardy. So we'll have it. I said, yes, I know, Father. I know what day we're having it, and I have everything arranged. I said, I have a baptismal outfit for the child. He says, is it a good Catholic gown? I said, well, no, Father. My husband didn't want him to wear a dress. One eyebrow went up. I said, but I made one, Father. I made one. It's really sweet. It's out of satin and it has nice little Irish trim on it. And it's a masculine form of a christening gown. And it'll please my husband. He thinks about it. I said, and besides, Father, with 6 weeks now, the christening gown is probably going to be too big for this little one. Father thinks about it and thinks, okay, that's all right. I think the good Lord will forgive you for having something other than a good Catholic christening gown. I didn't tell the father that my first child was baptized in a Protestant christening gown. We didn't bring that up. So anyway, so the father's eating away at the stew, and Gregory comes in and says, Mommy, are you going to cut the pies? I said, well, yeah. I said, you can have a taste if you like, and so could Father Flanagan. And you can get to pick either one, anything you choose, because I'm not going to serve the plates, the pie pans. I'm going to put it out in slices for the thing. So nobody will know if I cut the pie. Well, both my son and the father picked my Irish apple crumb pie. So I get my knife out and I start cutting for the father. I said, Father, would you like this size? He says, a little bit more. So I spread it out a little bit more. Well, maybe just a tad, maybe a tad more. Oh, that looks so delicious, he says. What a good lassie you are to make that. I'm sure your guests will love it and your husband will be so proud of you making all this food. So I cut it. I said, Father, would you like some curdled cream? You have curdled cream? Yes, I have curdled cream. I wasn't sure you'd like that, Father. That's more English, I think, maybe. Oh, it's in Ireland, too, he says. It's in Ireland, too. So I had him think he was a big glob of curdled cream. He says, my goodness, Linda, this is the best pie and the best stew I've ever had. Your bud is so lucky to have you. So very lucky. And I'm thinking, I'm really hitting a home run here. My husband is going to be so pleased because Father O'Flanagan thinks I am the top Irish lady in the whole world. So the father starts going on. He says, well, we better talk about this christening. I said, yes, Father. He says, you guys will be called up, but you won't, you and Bud won't hold the baby. Your godparents will. The godparents, which you sent me the name for, I see are good Catholics. I said, yes, Father, they are. I said, well, Father, we have a little problem. What problem, Linda? I said, our godparents can't come down from Virginia. There's been some kind of issue up there. with the military that they can't travel from Virginia. Not a problem. A good married couple like you can stand proxy. You can hold your own baby. Oh, okay, I can hold the baby for the Catholic godmother. No problem. And Bud will stand next to me and represent the Catholic godfather. He says, but Linda, he says, before you can do that, you're going to have to come to confession. Oh dear. And now it begins. So I said, well, Father, I can't go to confession. He said, why not? He said, the Lord will forgive you. And surely a girl like you, a fine gal like you, doesn't have much to confess. I said, well, Father, I can't go to confession because I'm Protestant. Oh, my goodness. He says, but you came to church and took communion at the Catholic Church. I said, I know, Father, I did that. Can't do that, Linda. And you're not going to be able to hold your baby for the baptism because you're not Catholic. I can't hold my baby for the baptism, Father? No. No, you can't. It has to be a Catholic person. Well, this girl that you're looking at can have a bit of an Irish temper. And I said, well then, Father, if I can't hold my own baby for my baby to be baptized, then the baby will not be baptized. And I got the look, the one your parents give you when you're totally being disapproved of. And he says very firmly, we'll see about that. Now, this is the man that just finished 2 bowls of my Irish beef stew, ate a whole bunch of my soda buns and a big slice of pie, and praised me the whole way through. Now he's angry at me and he goes out the door. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in trouble. I'm in big trouble. My husband is going to be so upset because this is his father, his priest from his church that he goes to. And now the father's upset with me. So I still have 4 days to go. 4 days to worry that my husband will be upset, that Bud will be upset when he comes in. So I put all the stuff away and continue as if the baptism is going on. So it comes the day when Bud's coming home, and I'm nervous because I think my husband's going to be upset with me, that I had the nerve, the audacity to speak back to the priest. So as standing on there in the pier, I decided I was going to dress up a little bit. So excuse me while I put on something that looks a little more presentable. And so I just got myself looking a little bit better to go meet my husband. And I'm standing there holding my baby, newborn baby, and three-year-old next to me. And out in the sea is a ship. And there's nothing more beautiful than a ship coming in in the morning. The sun just dances on the water and reflects on the ship. It's so majestic. And I'm standing there in awe. And for a second, I forget that my husband might be upset with me. And I'm just watching. And then as he comes closer and closer, the ship comes closer and closer, I think, am I in trouble? I should have never talked back to the priest that way. I should have said, I'm sorry, Father. Get whoever you want to hold the baby to stand proxy for me. But I didn't, me and my big mouth. So I'm waiting for Bud. And finally the plane comes down, and eventually there he is. And oh, he's so handsome, like he always was so handsome. He comes down that plank. I leave my little 3-year-old go, and he goes running, and I follow close behind. He picks up his 3-year-old, wraps me and the baby in his arms, and I get a big kiss. And I kind of trying to figure out, is he upset? No, he doesn't seem upset. He seems just fine. I mean, nothing stays a secret in the Navy. Everything gets back. Even though we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have communication like they do now, everything got back. So I thought, well, he doesn't seem angry with me now, but I am going to wait a little bit, pick my time like I always do. I always tell Bud everything, but I tell him at my good time. So we get all the hellos and the happy to see you and everything, and we're driving home. I said, Bud, I said, did you hear what happened between the priest and I? He says, yeah. He said, I did. I said, oh. And he kind of stalls for a while. I said, well, are you going to tell me what you think about that? Oh, yeah. He says, I was kind of surprised that the priest even got through, because that line is only open so many times where you could call in, and we only have 4 more days. What in the world could he be calling about? That's such an emergency that he has to go through this line to get to me. So they call me up and I come up. I said, Bud, please tell me what she said, please. Okay. So anyway, he says, well, doll, he says, the priest went on and on and on and on about how awful you were, how insolent you were. He did mention, though, that you made good pie. I know you make good pie. I hope you made something. Bud, tell me what he said. Please tell me what he said. He says, well, finally, the guy that was in control of communications told me I only had a few minutes, and the father still on and on and on and on. I said, well, what did you do? He said, well, I interrupted the father. I said, well, come on, Bud, what did you say? He said, I just told the father, do what my wife wants. And that was the end of the whole thing right there. We had the baptism. I held the baby. Everything turned out just fine.